questions. And we're going to start with Adam at The Guardian. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you. Let me try and share my screen without a fail here. How does that look? Does that work?
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you. So the power of the purpose was a very extensive piece of research that we did globally, and I'll talk you through some of the insights and the methodology throughout this presentation. So as purpose has become quite a hot topic in the industry, we wanted to start off by testing and finding out if this extends to the consumer. So we did a series of research projects and surveys with our own readers, and we found out that they absolutely do. 84% of our readers found that, agreed that Australians have a greater expectation of corporations to be socially and environmentally responsible now when compared to 5 years ago. And 90% agreed that that expectation is going to grow in the future. Now, whilst the expectation has grown and will grow, what we found was that there was a shortfall, or brands are actually behind the 8 ball when it comes to delivering on that purpose, where only 21% of respondents agreed that the brands are actually effectively communicating their purpose, and only 47% agreed that corporations are making more of an effort now compared to 5 years ago. So why is that important? Well, we also asked respondents how impactful they feel their individual actions have on making a personal difference to these social and environmental issues. And by far, the two most impactful actions were, number one, choosing products and brands that support that issue. And secondly, through personal lifestyle changes, which of course are largely tied with the brands that they consume. So that's where we teamed up with Ipsos, and we did a global study across the UK, US, and Australian markets, comprising of both qual and quant. The qual was a 3-day online community with both B2C and B2B interviews. And the quant was a representative and weighted survey across the 3 markets, looking at age, gender, and location, and also category splits in each market, with a sample of 1,000 in each market. So as I mentioned before, there's that shortfall, or brands aren't actually keeping up with client or consumer expectation. So we wanted to determine what consumers define as a brand that's purposeful. The 5 standouts here, or 5 traits that stood out, were progressive, trustworthy, impactful, authentic, and empowerment. We call these the 5 pillars of purpose. Now, to distill those individually, progressive is about constantly evolving and adapting. Trustworthy is about being reliable and living by your brand values. Empowering is about empowering the consumer to feel as if they're making a difference in the world too. Authenticity is about being genuine, transparent, open to feedback, and not being tokenistic. And impactful is about demonstrating how your brand is making a difference in the world. So we asked respondents in each market how purposeful advertising has an impact on their unique or individual consumer actions. Now, what we see here are the top 2 boxes on a 5-point scale. And what we found was a majority of the remaining 50% or so were actually neutrals. And to my point earlier, what we expect to see are those neutrals to shift to agrees in the near future. A few call outs here. 47% of Australians would trust an advertised brand if they're purposeful, and 45% would change their opinion of a brand if they perceive that brand as being purposeful. Again, some actions further down on the consumer journey. What we also did is we looked at these actions from the perspective of the 4 stages of the consumer funnel. And what we found was that 80% of Australians were impacted in at least one stage of the consumer funnel, and 43% of Australians were impacted in every single stage of that consumer funnel. So we really wanted to understand what that means for The Guardian. So The Guardian is synonymous with having that unique editorial content that aligns with brand purpose messages. And we wanted to see if that extends to our audiences. And what we found was that compared to the Australian market, our audiences are significantly more likely to be receptive of purposeful advertising. The two that really stuck out are the loyalty metrics here, where our audiences were 56% more likely to subscribe or follow a brand on social media if they're purposeful, and 70% more likely to share a blog or post on social media if that brand is purposeful. So it's not just the consumers are actually increasingly aware that brand's purpose is measured throughout the entire supply chain. And as audiences and consumers are becoming more media savvy, they're identifying or realizing that the brands in which brands which brands partner with are a part of that supply chain. There was an interesting piece or article that came out of the UK a couple of weeks back, whereby 85% of the market said that they will boycott brands that advertise alongside misinformation around COVID. And it just goes to show how media savvy audiences are becoming. So another major component of the project was a series of ad testing with a conjoint analysis. So in each market, we looked at ads in situ, and we got respondents to rate the level of impact of those ads. And in each market, we had 10 advertisers with 3 different ad types and 6 different media. And what we found was by far the most impactful variable within that mix was media selection, accounting for around 60% of total impact globally. And that's where media really has a high expectation of being purposeful across all of the markets, with around 70% of respondents globally saying that it's important for media companies to act in a purposeful way. And what we're looking at here is only media companies. So you would imagine the expectation of news brands, especially given all of the events of the past 18 months. So looking back on the purpose pillars that we covered earlier on, we use these to measure how purposeful each media platform is in the Australian market. And what we found was by far the most purposeful media in Australia was online and print newspapers, indexing at 148. And this was followed by television with an index of 118. We were really surprised by podcasts initially. We expected that to be a lot higher, but what we came to realize was that a lot of publishers are doing some fantastic work with podcasts out there, but there are also a lot of conspiracy theorists and misinformation podcasts, which of course bring that index down a lot. And again, the same for the United States, which was very similar to Australia, with online and print newspapers again being the highest indexing with 155, and television being the second with an index of 117. The United Kingdom was the most unique of the 3 markets. The only market of the 3 that didn't have online and print newspaper as the most purposeful, with television being the number one in that market. And it just really goes to show the major role that the BBC plays in that market. So overall, what we kind of came to was 7 implications for marketers. The first being, what is your story? So brands really need to demonstrate a clear purpose and stick to it. The second, curate your audience and ensure your media partner aligns with your purpose message. Third, be willing to engage with your consumers and be open to feedback and be very receptive of that feedback and be very mindful of the call out culture out there. Number 4, do then tell. Live by your purpose and take your consumers on your journey. Number 5, shift your call to action and empower your consumer to make a real difference in the world. Number 6, execution must reflect purpose. Need to be consistent and don't be tokenistic in this matter. Number 7, share your impact. Demonstrate how your brand is being purposeful and a difference that it is making in the world. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.